What would it be like to float through space, drifting ever slowly through the nothingness of the cosmos? Would it be relaxing? A calming sensation filling your body as you slowly fade into the unknown that is the darkness. Maybe it would even be a little painful, pushing you to a brink that causes you to truly discover the beauty that is the galaxy. But what would happen if it was more than just flying in space? What would happen if you became one with the stars, combining your mind and body with the infinity that is space? What would happen then? How would it feel? Could it truly be a most wondrous experience? And so, this story begins. Every time I look out the window, it still doesn't seem like it's been 5 years, Bee told Cosmos, her short and fluffy light brown hair swaying while she turned to face Cosmos. Bee looked down at her gold straight blonde hair and gold brown eyes, as well as Cosmos' model-like face and body shape, and in awe of her luscious white skin devoid of freckles, unlike her own. The light of the room reflected off Bee's own pale green eyes and frail brown skin, her face an oval with a defined nose and cheeks and many blemishes. Cosmos and Bee had few friends other than each other, and the captain of the explorers and scientists who have called this station home for the last 5 years, on a quest to learn about resources existing on the planets of a solar system, only several thousands of miles away from Earth. They haven't found many unique materials on these planets, but that's what they were hoping for, to find a solar system similar to our own, to see how life on Earth may have truly begun. There is only one problem with this, though. Many years after the discovery of this solar system, its star had died, leaving a void where the most important piece of any solar system should be. Yet, it didn't destroy the system. In fact, nothing seems to have changed, until the crew had arrived, and the pull of the non-existent sun's gravity started to unravel. This was the real reason they were here, though, to discover the meaning and reasons behind this unexplained phenomenon. Have you ever found it coincidental that your name is Cosmos, and you would grow up to explore the cosmos? Bee continued. Not really. It has always felt sort of natural, like destiny, Cosmos responded. Well, I suppose that makes sense. I do often wonder what drew you to coming aboard this ship. I mean, it's not often where you see some stranger lacking in proper training and knowledge come out of nowhere to go on a 6-year trip to a completely different solar system, no matter the cost. I don't remember much about my childhood, but I would often stare out into space with a great longing, as if something inside of me was to be part of the vastness of space. I knew, no matter what happened, I would find a way to go up there. Well, there truly is nothing quite like space. After an hour or so of sitting around talking, they were both called back on duty. The station, mostly monitored by computers, didn't need much maintenance, but the crew consisted of mostly explorers and scientists anyway, so there's a lot to do. In fact, Bee was one of the head scientists, due to her and Cosmos' relationship with the captain, although she lacked the skill and experience to have a greater authority. Cosmos, on the other hand, was one of the few people in the station that was allowed constant access to the shuttles. Cosmos and the other people would use them to land on planets, which rarely happens, collect samples, such as space debris, investigate objects, and pretty much anything you could think of using a space shuttle for. But a lot of people use them as a means of getting work done in a quiet, secluded place. Cosmos would use the shuttles this way from time to time, but mostly she would use them to venture, albeit not that far, into the solar system, where she would spend most of her time observing and recording information about the planets. The planets are like stars, if stars were solid and not made of exploding gases, Cosmos once said, and perhaps this explained her fascination with them. You have always talked about being more fond of stars than anything on Earth, Bee had responded. Cosmos thought of this while her and Bee split up to do their respective jobs. Cosmos headed towards the shuttle dock, but before she could board it, the station shook. This had happened before, caused by the gravity breaking down in the system. Every now and then, this would cause something a little worse than turbulence. But the station was built with things like this in mind, and could handle being shaken around. And if it ever drifted too far, the crew would just use the shuttles to relocate it. But it still is a gruesome reminder of the danger everyone at the station and the solar system itself is in. Cosmos, now regaining her balance, went back to boarding the shuttle. Because of this event, though, she decided to look into the gravitational decay, and since it just happened, maybe she could find some new information. And with that, she headed as far as she could, without permission, towards the center of the solar system. As Cosmos piloted the shuttle, she could feel the distortions of gravity pulling on its metal sides, shaking the shuttle, causing a not very comfortable journey. Well, it may be a bumpy ride, but at least it allows me to use the sensors to measure how often this keeps happening, she thought out loud, continuing to hover towards the middle of the solar system. She looked out the widescreen as she often does, daydreaming. Although she couldn't do that for long, as the swaying of the shuttle kept breaking her concentration. It's almost like the solar system is telling me that I should do my job. I suppose even after 5 years, I'm still not quite used to having work. This was true because before joining the mission to the solar system, she never had a job. But having been 5 years, she knew that the captain wouldn't be too pleased with her using the shuttle and not getting any work done. And so Cosmos stood up and started to scan the nearby asteroids as a means to measure when these distortions were taking place, as she couldn't rely solely on when they were hitting the shuttle. Although, as one might expect, this wasn't the easiest or best way to gather this information, and it doesn't really reveal anything behind the cause of the gravitational shifts. It didn't take Cosmos long to notice this and switch to scanning for the source of this disruptances. Strange, it seems like they are being caused by another source of gravity interfering with the decaying force from the dead star. But then, why does it look like the other source of gravity is the shuttle? The screen Cosmos was looking at, which, being something like a modern radar, wasn't of much help. I doubt I'm the first person to think of doing this either. There must be some sort of interference or something messing up the scans. I wonder if anyone knows what it is. And after thinking for a moment, Cosmos turned the shuttle around, hoping that someone on the station would know a thing or two about the interference. But just then, Bee started contacting her shuttle. "You need to get back as quickly as possible." "Well, I was already headed back, but what's the emergency?" "Another large gravitational disturbance is coming your way, and you're the only shuttle currently out. You know we have lost many people in instances like these. Wait, why is your shuttle also emitting a gravitational force?" "You see that too?" "Yes, but we'll worry about why later. Right now you need to move before the two forces collide." But, of course, right after saying that, the wave caught up to Cosmos' shuttle, and it shook with such great intensity as the two forces crashed against each other. Desperately, Cosmos tried to straighten the shuttle, but to no avail. Now getting pushed in the opposite direction, Cosmos quickly put on a spacesuit and headed towards the emergency exit. "What the heck are you doing?" Bee shouted, still on the call. "I can't pilot this thing. I'll have to take the risk and jump." "At least wait until they can send someone out after you." "If I wait that long, I might be miles away from the ship." "The forces of gravity will be stronger on smaller things, like you," Bee desperately shouted, but it was too late, as Cosmos had already jumped. Somehow, she didn't get pulled apart, and instead, Cosmos was able to float through space with relative ease. As Bee would soon realize, it's Cosmos that was emitting a force and causing the fluctuations, allowing her to glide through space relatively normally. And despite jumping off a spinning shuttle, her aim was quite on point, as Cosmos headed straight toward the dock. Unfortunately, the trip to the shuttle dock wasn't the most enjoyable, and took an incredibly long time of just floating in one direction. But when Cosmos finally saw the entrance, all of her emotions and negative thoughts went away. Angling herself, she reached out, hoping to grab the side of the station and pull herself onto the dock. Although, when Cosmos reached out, she didn't expect someone to grab her hand and pull her up. Startled, she accidentally got the arm of her spacesuit caught on one of the dock's metal doors, which are used to block off the entrance whenever needed. but the doors were pretty much just big blocks of metal, making them rather sharp. So it wasn't too unexpected that Cosmo's suit got ripped. But what was unexpected was how her hands started immediately glowing. Shocked, Cosmos' savior said, "You should probably have that checked out in the clinic." "Yes, probably, but not right now. I'm just thankful you could save me." She didn't sound too concerned. In fact, Cosmos was more worried about what Bee was going to say when they met again. She knew Bee wouldn't be too pleased with her reckless behavior, but Cosmos had done things like this before and could handle it. So, after standing up, she headed towards the clinic, where Cosmos knew her hand would certainly make her the center of attention. "It's not every day that somebody walks into here with yellow fingers," the head doctor said as Cosmos explained her issue. There is only so much I can do about this. I think I may have to call someone else in. You're friends with Bee, right?" Cosmos nodded. "Well, as she is one of the leaders of the scientists, I'll have her sent down to examine your hand. But in the meantime, I hope you don't mind my team doing scans on your hand." "Well, even if I don't, I feel like I don't have much of a choice," Cosmos sulked. "Yes, it is mandatory for anyone experiencing anomalies to be scanned by a professional on the station." So the doctor contacted Bee and called in some more of his crew to help scan Cosmos' hand. It was a while before Bee arrived, but this allowed the doctor's crew to scan Cosmos' hand thoroughly, and after telling her the information, the crew left Bee and Cosmos alone to gather even more information. First we find you're emitting your own gravity, and now your hand is emitting radiation. It's almost like you're a sun or something," Bee jested. "Well, at this point that could be the case. I mean, the people in the town where I came from always said I fell from the sky, although I doubt this is true." "Really?" "Yeah," Cosmos sighed. "I never had parents, and I never really knew where I came from. I was on my own from the beginning, and I would have died if it wasn't for the people in that town. Everyone had pitched in, trying to find me shelter, food, water, and other life essentials. They even hired a professional teacher for me, but life wasn't always nice. Sometimes it seemed as though everyone worshipped me like a god, a being above them, so I was never really able to mingle. I couldn't even go to school with other kids, and everyone took me too seriously." Bee stopped what she was doing and turned to face Cosmos. "Where you came from doesn't matter now. It is the fact that you are here that means all the difference to me." "Yes, I am glad that I ended up here, and I suppose I couldn't have done that with all the people back in the town. They did, after all, tell me about the station and its mission. I only wish I could remember the name of that town." "As long as you remember the things they did for you, their town will matter." "Yeah. Well, what about you?" "I never had anything too terrible happen to me in my childhood. I mean, I had some moments in my life where things didn't go so well, but that's life, I suppose. I will always remember my parents. They were always there and supported me when I needed it. Not to make you feel bad, Cosmos." "It's all right. I asked you to talk about your childhood, so I was expecting you to talk about your family anyway." "Yes, but I still want to make sure I didn't hurt your feelings. Anyway, I didn't have any siblings or anything, so I relied heavily on my parents for entertainment. They always seemed to know just what I was in the mood for. I don't think I told you this, but they're actually the reason I go by Bee. You see, my dad would always call me BB, saying I was bright and bold, but my mom just kind of went along with it. And as I got older, it just stuck. But it was weird having everyone call me BB, so I decided to just Bee would be better. Not very exciting story, I know, and it's nothing like your story, but you should probably know it." "I think it's an interesting story," Cosmos softly told Bee, making the moment pleasant for the both of them. But it had to be cut short when somebody began calling Bee on the clinic screen, and when Bee answered, Cosmos could see her perk up at even the mere sight of the caller. "How's everything going in there?" the captain asked. "Oh, Captain, it's been good. I suppose. I'm almost done if you want to chat," Bee said, the tone of her voice distinctively changing. "Well, you can give me the report over dinner then." "Wait, are you inviting me to dinner?" Yes, I can be there. I'll tell you about what I found too." "Is that not what I just said?" Well, Cosmos, you can come if you'd like to. I would, but I feel like the two of you should discuss this amongst yourselves, Cosmos said with a smirk. Okay then, I'll see you at dinner, Bee, the captain finished before leaving the call. I better get ready. Oh, and Cosmos, your arm should be fine. It seems as though it'll stop glowing in a few days. Still not sure what caused it. And then Bee scuttled out of the clinic, leaving Cosmos to figure out what to do next for herself. Cosmos headed towards her and Bee's room, hoping maybe she would find a glove or something in the drawers. But as she was walking through the halls, she bumped into Bee, now in a more casual outfit as she headed towards the captain's quarters. She sure changed fast. I bet they'll have a good time. During the time they have spent on the station, Bee and Cosmos had gotten to know the captain well. Everything from her light blue eyes and short black hair, as well as her tall stature and clear tan skin, to even where she came from, and her casual but serious personality. It also was slowly becoming obvious that Bee had been growing particularly fond of the captain. Cosmos had caught on to this and would tease Bee every now and then. I bet you wouldn't say that if the captain was here, she had once said while Bee was talking about how hard it is to be left alone on the station. Well, I have never gotten sick of her company, so I suppose I would say that. These interactions happened often between them, Cosmos reminisced, but perhaps this was a testament of their friendship. She continued walking to her room, ignoring the stares she was getting because of her hand. I really hope there's a glove or something in our room. This is getting a little annoying. She went around, opening the drawers attached to the side of her bed. It took some digging, but eventually she found one. And after putting it on, Cosmos stopped to take a moment and soak in her surroundings. She would do this every now and then, but especially after a stressful or eventful day. She examined the large window at the front of the room, and the strange orangish carpet that was quite out of place, and her weird pod-like bed right next to Bee's. I have always wondered what was going through the mind of whoever designed these quarters. It must have been something really distracting for them not to realize that the colors they were choosing didn't go together. But despite this, it was still her room, a place where she could just hang out with Bee or have some time to herself. Cosmos sat on her bed, taking a deep breath, knowing that after dinner she had no more tasks to do. It was this that incentivized her to lay on the bed for some time, just her and her thoughts. She laid there for some time before deciding not to have lunch and take a nap instead. Although, being quite exhausted from the stressful day, it wasn't really a nap, and Cosmos ended up sleeping all night. A few days had passed and Cosmos's hand finally stopped glowing. The last few days were not easy, though. The frequency of the gravitational disruptions had increased dramatically, so everyone had been working twice as hard to figure out why before something terrible happens. And, unfortunately, the ever-looming presence of doom had bittered the mood of everyone on the station. Cosmos and Bee spent most of their time together working in the lab, hoping to find some answers to all that was happening to Cosmos. Today, though, the captain had stopped by to help out with their research. She had been going around the ship, helping out with everyone's duties, in hopes to boost morale and speed things up a bit. It had been somewhat working, but the captain understands that she can only do so much. The captain decided, after putting it off a bit and helping the people she doesn't often, that it was time to help Bee and Cosmos. I'm glad you're here. We could really use some help, Bee said when the captain arrived. Well, that's why I'm here, isn't it? The captain stated. Well, as long as you do some work while you're here, then it doesn't matter where you came from, Cosmos chimed in. Well, yes, you can start by comparing the readings from our scans over the last few days, Bee told the captain. Seems fair to me, the captain said, picking up her tablet to review the information. They hadn't really discovered anything new in their scans, but nonetheless they all knew it was important to compare them, in case it revealed a pattern or something. Unfortunately, as the captain compared the last few days' scans, she found there wasn't really a pattern to the disruptions, or Cosmos emitting a gravitational force herself. It's still strange that all of these things are happening to you, Cosmos, the captain said while she was reviewing some of the scans taken on Cosmos. The only answers I can even think of are quite outlandish and don't really have any logic to them. Yes, but what is happening to me is quite out of place and doesn't really follow any logic. So it wouldn't be unreasonable to assume the conclusion is of the same nature, Cosmos puzzled. Well, I am sure there is some reasonable explanation for this, but every time I try to think of something, it does seem less likely, B added. The three of them stood there in silence for a bit, trying to come up with any idea to share, but no one spoke, as they couldn't think of anything. It remained like this for a while as they continued their work, still trying to think of any sort of answer. Their concentration was only broken by an emergency call for the captain. Captain! The voice rang. It was a loud, sort of booming voice, almost immediately recognizable for doing the station's announcements, even if you didn't know who it was. It would seem that gravity is starting to cave in on itself. We must act quickly before this forms a black hole. Did you just pick up on this? The captain hastily replied. Yes, but it would seem that the old sun's gravity finally gave way, causing it to start imploding. We are not sure why this is just happening now. Tell everyone to hold steady and prepare to take drastic measures to escape the system in time, and have everyone sent to their posts and prepare for further orders. Yes, I'll see you in the control room. It wasn't long until the captain's orders were followed and an announcement explaining the situation could be heard throughout the station. B and Cosmos, I want you to come with me, as you know the station can't move on its own, so we'll need to send a shuttle team out. Cosmos, you have worked with a team moving the station before. I expect you'll be up to the task, the captain addressed Cosmos as she respectfully nodded. And B, the Cosmos said, now turning to face her. As one of the head scientists, it is your job to study the anomaly, so I invite you to examine it by my side and in the control room, where you can get a closer look, hopefully. She also nodded, understanding that the next few moments of their life would be a determining factor in whether they live or die. Now, with a new plan, they all hastily headed towards the head of the ship, where the control room is located. But by the time they arrived, everyone was going into a frenzy. Captain! It seems that things are getting worse every second. We need to make a plan now, or I fear what may happen, one of the other head scientists said, who had come up to the control room for the same reason as B. Oh, and B, your help would be greatly appreciated in monitoring the gravity's decline. The information is vital to saving the station. Understanding this, B headed towards the other scientists who had gathered in the control room, but before she could get very far, everything began to shake. The station had started shaking with such intensity that B and a few others fell over. What's this? She shouted, having a hard time being heard over the rumbling of moving metal. This shouldn't be happening. If my calculations were correct, we should have had a few more minutes before the black hole formed, a panicked voice responded. Not the most relieving message, to say the least, but it was a somber reminder that not everything can be predicted, and sometimes people make mistakes, even if it's an important matter. The captain had now rushed over to the front of the room, giving out orders in hopes to stabilize the station and its crew. This worked fairly well for a time, but as the black hole continued to grow bigger, the reality of the situation took hold throughout, and soon it was chaos. As everyone panicked, Cosmos found herself staring out the large window at the front of the control room. She stood there, thinking of all the strange things that had happened to her throughout her life. Suddenly, she had an epiphany. Snapping back, she ran over to B. B, I need your help in reaching the middle of the solar system. But last time you were out in a shuttle, you almost died, and I don't think we should risk it in these conditions. I know, but if we get over there, I can fix it, and if something isn't done, then we're done. Unfortunately, you're right, and if something isn't done, we'll probably die anyway. And B answered, understanding that she couldn't convince Cosmos not to go through with her plan. All right, I'll come with you. I mean, I have to make sure nothing goes too wrong. You'll need a skilled pilot to get you out there, the captain said, butting in. Oh, Captain, wait, how did you hear us? Well, we're in the same room, and you aren't very quiet. In all seriousness, though, I'm not letting you go on this mission without me. B and Cosmos knew that the captain would be vital to their mission, so a trio once more, with a life-or-death task, they headed towards the docks. As the pressure started to linger on their minds, the mood became quite tense, and the team almost had no confidence by the time they boarded the shuttle. Don't worry, I have a plan. I know it will work. B smiled, but you could see the panic in her eyes. Even the captain was beginning to show her fear. After taking a moment to analyze their surroundings, the small crew was off the station, headed through the dangerous minefield that the solar system was becoming. "I need you to be ready to take charge if the shuttle starts becoming unstable," the captain said to Bee. "I'd ask Cosmos, but she seems pretty busy with her plan, and I think you have the skills to expertly do this." This caused Bee to blush a little, alleviating some of the remaining tension, although Bee stopped when she saw the look Cosmos was giving her. "What? It's not like you've never blushed when given a compliment from the captain." "Well, maybe I have, but not like that. Although, it's nice to see you smile in a moment like this." "I hate to break the mood, but we have arrived," the captain stated. "That fast? Well, I suppose we have been getting pulled towards the center as we're flying here," Bee said insightfully. "I don't feel any turbulence, though. You really are a professional pilot, Captain." "Why, yes, I suppose I am." Except, just then they started getting pulled even further towards the black hole, even with thrusters on full reverse. "Cosmos, I would say now is the time to tell your foolproof plan," the captain said, now with a serious tone. "Well, it's kind of obvious when you think about it. An orphan, fond of the stars since day one, came from nowhere, caused mysterious anomalies, such as having their own gravitational pull, and every time she touches any part of space in the system, begins to glow bright yellow and heat up. I don't think I need to explain this further." There was a moment of silence as the realization hit both Bee and the captain. They both thought of how if this was the case, then Cosmos was right about the solution being very illogical. "But what if it's not the case?" Bee suddenly shouted. "What if you're wrong and you die because of this?" "Bee, look, it all lines up. This is what I'm supposed to do," Cosmos responded. "I can't just let you do that because of a few strange things that have happened to you. I mean, strange things happen to me all the time." "But it just hasn't been a few times. It's been my whole life, and I know it may be hard, but it's the truth." "Wait, Cosmos, Bee started before getting cut off by the captain. "Bee, look, I know you care deeply about your friends and could never handle anything bad happening to one of us. But there are times in life where all you can do is head one way and hope you did the right thing. You can't know beforehand if things will turn out fine, but sometimes you don't have a choice, and sometimes all you need is a feeling to guide you the right way. Cosmos has that feeling. You must trust her." "Promise me that you know what you're doing?" "In all my life, I have never truly felt that I knew what I was doing. Until this moment." Bee had begun to cry as she walked over towards Cosmos, hugging her. I trust you." So Cosmos headed towards the emergency exit, knowing that when she opened the door, there would be no turning back. Bee and the captain would have to shut it almost immediately, or risk getting sucked into space as well. So taking a deep breath, she opened the door and jumped. And as she started floating, Cosmos was able to turn around and bid one final farewell to her friends as they shut the door. Cosmos slowly drifted towards the center of the vortex, and as she neared it, she could almost hear the calling of the stars. Cosmos felt as though everything that had ever happened to her led her to this moment, and as much as the station was a home to her, she felt this was the right place to be, a new home of her own. And as light began to radiate from her body, she remembered all that had ever happened in her life, and how her story is just beginning. And during this moment, almost everything made sense. This was her destiny. This was her fate. She came from the stars as a child on Earth to restore a broken solar system, to bring new life where it was lost. Gravity only started breaking because of her and her presence, happening slowly as the system began to rely on her own gravity. The system had survived the death of its star because it didn't truly die, for the star is her. And as her body started to heat up, becoming a whirling ball of pulsating gas, she only had one question. How? In fact, that's the question everyone on the station began to think as the whole crew started crowding the window for a glimpse at the spectacular event. As Cosmos started slipping from reality, becoming engulfed in a pain the likes of which man shall never know, she was able to embrace the moment even more. And with a huge flash of light, she was no more, or at least human no more. Returning to the ship, the captain and Bee couldn't even fathom the words to express all they felt to each other, or even about the event, but they found comfort in the fact they could both not come up with anything. In fact, witnessing this event and the confidence of their friend jumping into the unknown had both given them more poise, bringing them closer. Both Bee and the captain thought about this while landing in the dock, where they were met with great silence upon arriving. All of the guards who normally protect the dock from unauthorized ships had left to watch the spectacle. In fact, everyone was still over there talking about the moment to try and make sense of anything that just happened. But the captain and Bee knew they could never truly understand it, so instead of trying, they focused on other things.
When we return home in a year, I would assume we should tell somebody about this, huh?
Said Bee in an attempt to break the silence. Ah! You know as well as me that no one would even believe us. I mean, a human star? Come on.
Well, I suppose you're right, but isn't this our job?
Well, they will ask us where the star came from, but let's not worry about this now. On an unrelated note, you'll be needing a new roommate now. As captain, it is my job to find a place for you, and it just so happens that I have a free space in my quarters.
Really? I have been waiting a long time for you to ask that, and of course I'll accept it, Keela.
To this the captain calmly responded, Well then, I couldn't be happier with your choice, BB. And with that, they headed towards the right of the station where everyone had gathered to gaze at Cosmos's glory. The station had been moved a safe distance from Cosmos's star, but it didn't seem any smaller. As the captain and Bee engaged in further conversation, they knew Cosmos would shine down on them for trillions of years as the life and legacy of her and everyone on the station continued. I hope you liked that story. I know it wasn't perfect, but you made it all the way to the end card, so you either fell asleep or actually enjoyed it. I plan on doing more of these. I love writing stories, after all. Even if you don't like these stories, I'll still keep uploading my video game related content. Okay, I'm not going to be one of those YouTubers who's always telling you to like and subscribe, but on that note, since you made it this far, why not like and subscribe? Okay, but seriously, thanks for watching. Thanks.